Dr. Henry Reed.
Okay, all right, thanks. I appreciate that. That's really an act of faith because you haven't experienced me yet, so you don't know if it's worth applauding for or not. So intuitive. Okay, very good. Well, what I'd like us to do, we're going to bring our energies together, have a little chance to relax and calm down. I know, especially with the weather, it's such a hassle just getting over here. And also, we're going to relax in a way that's going to be a good introduction to what we're going to be doing this afternoon. So I have you just close your eyes and get comfortable in your chairs. And just rest your attention on your breathing. Just become aware of your breathing. There's no need to breathe in any particular way, but just to be aware of it. Noticing how when the air goes out, there's a slight relaxation, and how the air can come back in all by itself. And just let the rhythmic pattern of your breathing relax you, and maybe even take you on a little journey now. Just massaging your mind. It's very natural, and we'd expect you to have many thoughts and things going on in your mind, and that's perfectly okay. And when you notice all that's happening, just bring your attention back to your breathing. Just rest yourself in your breathing. Feeling comfortable, and it's the breath's taking care of it. Look at your fingers and open your eyes, and we'll continue on. This is bright lights and big city kind of experience, but I guess that's showbiz, huh? Well, one of the things about my programs here these afternoons, and we'll have 2 evenings together, as they're somewhat short in time. We'll have 2 50-minute hours. Of course, I'm used to that time frame, being a shrink. And one of the advantages is we have to really be short and sweet. And what we're going to do this afternoon is that I'm going to give you a very quick run-through of my presentation to the general public on intuition. One of the things that I'm going to be attempting to do with you is guide you through some experiences to show you the extent of your own intuitive ability in what I think is a very natural way, very natural process. One of the things that I've tried to avoid doing when going out and speaking in the public is giving people too many ideas to think about, too many affirmations or assertions about the nature of reality, the superconscious mind or divine consciousness or anything like that, for 2 reasons. One, if I'm giving off these kinds of ideas, then they're thinking about them and wondering if they're true. And second, the more information I'm pouring into people, the less opportunity there is for the people to be intuitive. So I have developed kind of an intuitive approach to teaching intuition, and that's what we're going to work with this afternoon. Then this evening, when we get together to do the dream exploration, I'll back up some, and you can see a little bit of the theory behind this. Okay? Is the most basic agreement, understanding that I can get with people about intuition. If you go around, people working in factories, people on cruises, kids, we've been in lots of different contexts, and we want to explore intuition. What do you think is something that I can get almost everybody to agree about? Not the definition of intuition, or what it is. We still don't even know. Any guesses? That everyone has it? Some people might agree to that. Yes? How many of you think everybody has it? All right, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, somebody back there?
Just that it exists.
That it exists? Okay, well, you all think intuition exists, or you probably wouldn't be here. How many of you can recall a time when you regret not following your hunch? Yeah, okay, well that's the one. Find almost everybody says they can remember a time when they regret not following a hunch. So there's a place to start. We know what that feels like. Oh, darn. You know? And for some people, they say that thinking about it is when they decided to really start paying attention to their intuition. They say, I'm never going to let this happen again. Oh, this the third time. Golly, I'm really going to start paying attention to my intuition now. This kind of like an initiation experience for a lot of people. You know what is one of the most common instances of regret over not following a hunch? Not getting married is right. So many people can say they had this feeling they shouldn't marry that person. But they went ahead. Yeah. And let's just think about it, because one of the things I'd like to ask you is think about the times that you regret not following a hunch. And what would it take for you to learn to trust your intuition? Because that's what this is all about. What does it take? You can see that some of the challenge is to learn how to recognize your intuition, to learn how to make it clearer or more intense. But a lot of it is about learning how to trust it, learning how to be with it. For example, in the marriage situation, they say, well, I had already gotten the gifts, the invitations had already gone out, there was too much social pressure. No. Another reason given is, I couldn't explain it. You're not going to marry me because of the hunch? You know? Because you don't have anything to point to. You can point to figures. You can things that we can all see with the eyes, we can all point to it and say, look, here's the reasons, or here's the logic. Those externals. But with intuition, it's an inner reality, so it's hard to share it with another person to get them to see what's going on. What are some of the reasons you can think of as why you might not have followed that hunch? Somebody?
Crazy.
What?
It seems crazy.
It seems crazy. Like it just sort of comes out of nowhere, or it doesn't follow the thoughts that you've normally had or the assumptions that you've made about something. How many can relate to that reason? Yeah. Because you don't have a foundation for it. Somebody else? Yes, back there.
Confidence in yourself.
Confidence in yourself. Who am I to have this kind of an understanding when everybody else is saying blah, blah, blah? What do you think that kid that said, hey, the emperor has no clothes? I mean, what kind of confidence did that kid have, to speak up in the midst of all the grown-ups who are being so serious about everything? Again, it's somehow the trust. Carl Jung once defined being religious, as meaning being true to one's own experience. And that would be that same kind of confidence factor that you're talking about. If I'm experiencing something, there must be a reason for it. Now, you see, one of the things in our society, our culture, we're not that unique, but most of our training has been in things that are observable. The physicality of things, the externals, what other people are doing. A lot of our learning is by modeling other people. Most of the time when we've been in school, we've had a teacher up front like here, pointing up to something you're supposed to follow. You're supposed to do it right. Handwriting is a good example. Here's how you're supposed to make the letters. Say, here's a good reason for it, because if your handwriting isn't follow the pattern, then nobody can read what you're trying to write. So it makes sense, and we learn how to do as we're told. How many of you can remember a teacher who said, don't pay any attention to what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what I think. It's what you think that counts. Anyone have a teacher like that? A couple, yeah, great. Oh, Henry Reed. Yeah, so we're not trained in looking inward. Intuition is knowing from within. And we're not trained to do that. We're just learning about how to do that. And then the next step is we're going to be having to learn how to work together intuitively. Because as an example that I give, a lot of interest among nurses in intuition training. And a lot of the nurses are already intuitive, and they don't really need training in intuition. It's their doctors. Because you hear a situation. The nurse senses something's wrong with the patient. All the chart says everything's okay, but he has this feeling that something's not quite right. So she's already been intuitive. Something's wrong. She calls the doctor over. Doc, something's wrong here. Well, what makes you think that? Everything looks fine. Well, I have this funny feeling. And then at that point, see, the doctor says, well, what do you mean? Well, what we have to do is get the trained doctor to say, funny feeling? Well, let me tune in for a minute myself. You know? I'm getting a picture of waves and things bobbing. The nurse says, that's kind of funny because I'm getting this thing of this something that's, now you see it, now you don't. And then they say, what does that make you think of? Well, I don't know, like potassium levels go up and down like that, don't they? Oh, yeah. No, okay, well, let's go test. And they're working together with their intuition for cues to how to deal with the situation. That's ultimately what we're going to need the training in, not so much in how to be intuitive, but how to be intuitive together. And we're going to be working with some of that here today. Now, we're going to start out, though, with the basis of the foundation of trust. In my book on channeling your higher self, I encapsulated Edgar Casey's formula for working intuitively by making the attunement and getting out of the way. In other words, you set your intention as to what you want to be intuitive about, and then get out of the way and let the intuition come. So we're going to just work with this experience first. And you know, we all have a great teacher inside as to how to be intuitive. Because we're being intuitive all the time. And that is because basically being intuitive is being yourself. How else can you be yourself? Because you didn't get a book written about how to be you. It just comes from you. You make yourself up, improvise from moment to moment. And you've got a great teacher, a great guide, a great guru that's within you that can show you some tremendous secrets about functioning intuitively. And that teacher is your breath. And so I'd like to have you get reacquainted with your breath. And we're going to spend some moments going inside and observing some things about our breath, forming some insights about that, sharing a little bit, and seeing that as a community of seekers, we can learn from one another about what goes on the inside. We can have an inner university together about intuition. We can form a learning community about inner events. Okay, so I want you now to task number one, observation mission number one, is to pay attention to your breathing right now. You don't have to sit in any particular posture. You don't have to have your eyes closed. All I want you to do is be aware of something that happens all the time, your breathing. Just simply be aware of your breathing and let it be. And we'll see what that's like. First of all, how many of you are noticing that as you're starting to pay attention to your breathing, that you want to change or control it in some way? Look at all the hands that are going up. Well, this is very interesting, and this is a great first lesson. Just reflect on what that was like. If you had that sense of somehow I want to change my breathing, or I don't feel I'm breathing deep enough or regular enough or something, that if you interview people about intuition, give me an example of an experience that you had that you think might be an example of intuition. People will tell you all kinds of stuff. needing to go into the drugstore and get a birthday card, and they don't have much time, and so they just go over to one place and hope that the first one to pop into their hand will be it. Having this feeling that maybe there's traffic is bad on some road and going a different route home, and then hearing on the news that the road there was an accident. Knowing who it was that's on the phone before they pick it up. On and on and on. All kinds of different things. And I say, well, do you think you can do that on purpose? People say, well, that's the trouble with intuition. Intuition is easy to do when it's spontaneous, when it just happens. But when you try to do it intentionally, I just get in my own way. I foul it up somehow. How many of you can relate to that statement? Okay. Now, it's the same with the breathing. Think about the breathing for a moment. Something that's been going on for years, happening all by itself. But as soon as you pay attention to it, you want to fool with it. I don't know if I'll breathe, unless I got to make these breathing motions. Now that I think about it, gosh, where's this breathing been happening where I haven't been paying attention? I'm lucky to be here. I'm glad I'm back here in the driver's seat. Some kind of concern. You might say a lack of trust. But explore the contours of that for a moment. Once again, pay attention to your breathing. Be aware of it. And as you do so, just allow your breathing to flow by itself. And I can give you some hints as to how your breath is most ready to share with you its secrets. Begin by paying attention to the exhalations. Pay special focus on the exhalations and let your breath, the exhalations, show you how to relax, how to let go. Now, your breath knows how to do this. So every time the breath goes out, notice what it does. How does it do it? Just be aware. You're the student. Your breath is your teacher. And each time the breath goes out, it shows you how to relax and let go. So what are you learning? See, maybe some thoughts or pictures or images might come to mind to express to you what's going on during the exhalation. How does relaxation happen? How do we let go? We've heard that word so many times, let go, let God. We hear it in lots of different ways. Well, how do you let go? What does your breath have to show you about that or share with you? Let's get some observations from some of you. What do you think? What have you noticed? What have you learned here in the last minute about what goes on during letting go? Somebody? Excuse me?
I hear a lot of yawn.
You hear a lot of yawns. What's happening inside of you?
Waiting for my turn.
Waiting for your turn to yawn. Okay. Somebody else? Yes?
You let go of a lot of bad things.
You what?
A lot of toxins are going down.
A lot of toxins are going out. Okay. Somebody else? Yes?
The breath is like a reminder of the flow of spirit, even the flow of water flowing down into the ocean and recycling. Everything perhaps moves like our breath, and we can get on that flow and go with it.
Okay, that's a very good one. I don't know if everyone could have heard that, so I'm going to repeat some of it. He said, to him, the going out of the breath reminds him of water, the flow of water. I live by a creek and watch how the water moves and moves around the rocks. It's very yielding and just sort of follows the contours. He's talking about the flow of the breath and the recycling and how the breath and the water just sort of moves out towards the ocean. That everything perhaps is in some kind of a motion, a flow. In fact, some people that write about intuition talk about getting into a flow state. That there are times in our lives when we're naturally in the flow Athletes sometimes talk about being in the groove, where everything just seems to happen just perfectly all by itself without any effort on our part, and everything works out right. That's a special time of grace for the athlete. And we know that some of us have those moments during the day or days where everything flows well. Now we can intentionally get into that flow state by using our breath as a guide. We need to be intuitive. We have a challenge facing us, so we want to shift gears into the flow state. Where can we find that going on? In our breathing. Paying attention to our breathing, starting with the relaxation. So as you're just paying attention now to the relaxation of your breath and seeing what your breath has to teach you, showing you about letting go and flowing, see what you notice or what pictures or thoughts come to mind. How can you understand this flowing that happens during the exhalation? Somebody else. Yes, back there.
To me, the breathing is the pathway or the bridge between different levels of consciousness.
The breathing is a pathway, a bridge. He's making his hand go like this. It's like you feel some kind of a shifting happening, huh? And it's as if you're starting to be aware of what you are calling levels or something of that. Different feelings of awareness or different channels or different qualities or something. Okay? Somebody else. Yes?
It makes me want to close my eyes, and then when I close my eyes, I can tune into I just sense different parts of my body that I need to let go of more.
Okay. She wants to close her eyes. She finds herself closing her eyes, which is like being less aware of out there and more aware in here. And as she closes her eyes and she's more aware in here, she starts being aware of other parts of her body that she wants to relax. And how would your breathing tell you how to relax those parts of the body?
It just goes there. It's like it just goes there, then I start breathing out from the place that needs to be released.
It's so natural it's hard to put into words. Part of what Edgar Casey said was his skill, was that he was able to translate the events that were going on in his subconscious mind and translate them into words. Because we all have, right now you're having a number of intuitions about letting go, about what your breathing is showing you, and yet to verbalize it is difficult. And one way sometimes to begin that is to see what pictures come to mind or what you're reminded of, maybe a past instance of something. This gentleman is reminded of water and seeing water. This is the bridge towards being able to verbalize your intuitions. One of the challenges I sometimes give to people is pretend that you were going to be in front of a bunch of children and you were going to put on a dance. You were going to put on a little mime dance to show kids how to relax. You know, kids get uptight these days. This is the modern life. And kids get uptight and they need to learn how to relax. So how do you teach a kid how to relax? You know, so you learn from your breathing some kind of a gesture that you can make and have everybody, let's go, or whatever, to just let go, relax. Okay, let's look at the other side of the coin, the incoming breath. We have some images for the flowing out. Now, paying attention to your breath, have the breath come in. Just let the breath come in all by itself. As you relax and let go, you surrender your life to your breathing, trusting that the next breath will come to you all by itself. And it comes. And what's that like? Watch with each cycle of your breathing as the next breath comes without you having to do anything. It just comes all by itself. And see, what is that like? What does that remind you of? What images come to describe what that's like to have these breaths come all by themselves? How many of you have had that feeling so far that you can let the breath come to you all by itself? The rest of you got to suck air in order to have it work? Huh? You're on artificial respirators. You relax, and then it comes. Well, some of you back there, what was it like to have the air come, yes, back there all by itself?
It felt like I was being filled, maybe like a balloon as it came into my mind.
Yeah, the image came to your mind of being filled like a balloon, Relaxing, right, very good. Okay, somebody else, yes.
Reminds me of clouds going over.
Clouds going over. Say a little bit more about that, the clouds going over.
Say more about it.
Yeah, Are they floating, or are they flying,
Yeah,
or
they're
help us see the connection?
They're floating by, and I guess when people, or at least I know when I lie on the grass in the summer and just watch the clouds go by, I
Yes.
feel very relaxed.
Yes, okay. Can you see that kind of a connection? You've ever laid on your back and you get to a point where you finally just relax into the ground. You get so relaxed. I did that the other day, and all my ghosts rushed over to me at that moment. I thought, hey, are you still there? They seem to know. You know, they're all munching on grass until that moment I finally release into the sky. And it's like maybe they sensed my body about to fly or something. And all came over immediately. Yeah, okay, that's a great image. Somebody else, what's that like? Yes?
It's like a tide.
It's like a tide, Right. Yes, Somebody else that hasn't had a chance. Yes, ma'am.
Like accepting flow of energy and cleansing of the not only body but mind as well.
Yes, you feel some kind of a flow of energy, and it's like cleansing and so on, Right, okay. Now, let's take this a little bit farther, because there are deep mysteries here. This is an everyday event, and at the same time, there's a tremendous spiritual mystery going on in this breathing. Or people wouldn't have devoted thousands of years of study and writing about this phenomenon. We'll just explore a little bit of it. Paying attention to your breathing, getting into a place where you can just relax, letting the breaths go out and relax to the point that you're now feeling receptive to the breaths coming in. So each time you relax a little bit to the breath going out and you surrender, it's easier to become more and more receptive to the breath coming in. We might say we're open to our breathing. How did we develop that word to mean those two things? Just ask your breath, and every time a breath comes to you, may you get a new insight about the connection. Yes?
They both tie you to something bigger than yourself.
They both tie into something bigger than yourself. That's very important, because you see the breath. I was going to ask the lady with the balloon. Who's filling that balloon? You know, it's breathing is bigger than us. It's the life force. When we say I had an inspiration, it's like this idea, this is more than I could have thought of. This is something special. This came from beyond. Inspiration has connotations in which boundaries are transcended. You're going beyond yourself, or something from beyond you is coming to you, and yet it's happening inside of you. There's a paradox there. There's a paradox about intuition, because you see, what we're saying is you can learn about the world out there by looking in here. How do you learn about the world out there? By looking in here. That doesn't make sense. We learn about the world by microscopes and telescopes and so on. That's the way we've been taught. But now we're starting to see that we can learn about the world out there by going in here. And one of the ways to answer that mystery is by exploring, like she said, with this word inspiration, that somehow the great out there exists in here, and you're aware of it when you're in this certain state of mind, this inspired state of consciousness. And the wisdom flows. Yes, you wanted to say something.
It's interesting to parallel the word inspire, taking the breath in, the inspiration.
Yes, right.
Inspiration.
The breath of inspiration, getting inspired, letting the stuff in, the insights. You're all getting inspired right now. It's so profound, you're wordless, speechless, huh? Yeah, in a way, yeah. That's heavy duty. A lot of stuff there. Yeah, and I hope that, you'll find yourself driving to work or sitting on the john or whatever. In one moment, you're going to pay attention to your breath again and say, yeah, what is this mystery? And all of a sudden, an inspiration will come, and you'll sense your connection with the greater reality, your connection with the greater life, and how it's all there for you inside, like a fountain, just ready for you to take what you need. Yes?
Inhaling reminds me of the earth, which to me is a person, a feminine person, breathing through me if I allow it. Breathing in spirit, breathing back a different kind of energy.
Right.
If I allow it.
If you allow it, right. If I allow it. You see, this is part of setting the intention to be intuitive. I am going to allow myself to be breathed. Now, the rest of the day, when you don't allow it,
That's where the word expire comes in.
Right, the word expire comes in. So you be careful. When you leave here, don't let yourself get breathed none. You clamp down that mouth and nose. And you only breathe when you say so. There's this whole issue, see, of spontaneity, naturalness, awareness, intentionality. It's all here in this little study on the breath. And if we had a week rather than our 50-minute hour, I would take you through many, many levels of this. There's so much here. So much your breath wants to show you how rich you are, how creative you are, how full of energy and spirit you are. It's all there. Now let's take it a little bit farther. And I want you just to now, we've had a little bit of practice, to get into the flow state. That is, you focus on your breathing, starting with the exhalations, letting them show you how to relax. As you start to find yourself shifting gears, letting go into relaxing on the exhalations, then start focusing on the inspirations, trusting them to come on their own. And you could use, if you like, the code phrase, the secret password to this state of consciousness. I can trust in inspiration. So you're just letting this breath come to you. And I'd like you to just experiment then as you get into this flow state where you're letting go and trusting in inspiration. That's the flow state. To experiment with what it might be like to appreciate this gift of breath. What might it be like for you to simply experience gratitude for the fact that you're breathing? Experience your breath as a gift for a moment. Allow yourself to feel some appreciation or gratitude for that. Not everybody's breathing easy. And we're lucky to be breathing. And just experience. You don't have to do anything. It's just a gift. For some people, that's the wonderful part about it. For others, it's so relaxing. You're being taken care of. That's something to feel grateful for. See what you can find to feel grateful about in your breathing. And notice just what it feels like to feel grateful. Specifically, I'd like you to put your focus in your heart area and see how your heart responds to feeling grateful. See what kind of an energetic shift or a mood shift or a physical shift you can feel in your heart area when you start experiencing gratitude. Okay, somebody, tell me, what was that like? Yes?
It feels as if my heart gets bigger, it expands.
You feel like your heart gets bigger and it expands. How many of you experience something like that? You could experience an expansion. Okay? Now we talk about our heart going out. You know, is that they're talking about some kind of an expansion of awareness where our heart goes out. Somebody else, what did that feel like? Yes?
Slow down.
It slowed down, calming. Yep. Somebody else? Yeah. You're at peace. Now, there are some people, it was some here just this last week from the Heart Math Institute have done studies of the heart and the heart rhythm when they ask people to conjure up a feeling of appreciation or gratitude, that the heart does show a more peaceful type of functioning and that this has mental effects. It's very hard for us to be intuitive when we're tight, when we're worried. When we can not only relax but experience a certain peace of mind, there's a harmony or a coherence about our thinking, a peacefulness that allows us actually to be more intelligent. We're going to be working with that, using that. Somebody else? Yes?
When I breathe in, I feel like I'm bringing in light and energy and vibrational information.
When she's breathing in, she feels like light is coming in, vibrational information is coming in. It seems like then it's like somehow you're being filled with intelligence, or there's some meaning or something of that sort, huh? Yeah. They're just now beginning to understand that the heart has some kind of brain power to it, or intelligence. That it has a memory. People that have heart transplants sometimes start having flashes and imageries or tastes or ways of speaking that relate to the person who gave them that heart, as if there's some memory there. We're going to be exploring heart intelligence. And that is, what do we mean when we say, I know in my heart? What does that phrase mean? I know in my heart. What?
Feel it.
You feel it. You're talking about an intelligence, huh? Where would such a phrase come from? How would we develop a phrase like, I know in my heart? It's the truth. It's some kind of a way of trying to put into words the experience that we can have of knowing some truth that is not coming in the sense of it's not a logical truth, it's a felt truth. And so it makes sense to say, I know in my heart. I've studied this and found that in our language we have so many phrases that talk about the intuitiveness of the heart. And we use these phrases as if we understood what they meant. When we say our heart goes out to somebody, what do we mean by that? What? Compassion, yes.
You feel sympathetic
We
towards them.
feel sympathetic. Okay. Now, why does it make sense to use a phrase, my heart goes out to somebody, to describe sympathy, compassion, empathy, understanding? Why do we say our heart goes out? How does that make sense? Yeah.
That's where we feel it in our physiology.
We feel it in our physiology. Yeah.
It kind of happens without really thinking about
It happens without thinking about it. What do we mean by heart connection? You feel what they're feeling? Yeah?
Yeah, and there's like a love aspect.
There's a love aspect, an appreciation aspect. Do you relate to this? Yeah, it's you see, it's all what we would call, psychologists would call implicit understanding. In other words, we haven't been taught this. No one's talked to you about it. But yet you understand it. You've never seen a heart go out. Except maybe in Jim Carrey's movie The Mask, where he's sitting in the restaurant. Now, little animation. You've never seen a heart go out, but yet you understand what it means. How could you understand what it means except by a way of empathy? You feel your way into the statement. And over the years, whenever you've heard it, you felt your way into it. It's an intuitive understanding. And we have many, many examples in our language that rely on us being intuitive with one another. And words or phrases that use the heart is a big class of them. Let's do a little experiment here. Get yourself with a partner, someone you're sitting next to. If you're not sitting next to somebody, go sit next to somebody. And we're going to do something very quick here, and then we'll have a break. I want you to be very quiet now. We're going to make a heart connection with our partner. It's all going to be from the inside. You're going to connect with your partner not by grabbing them by the shoulders, but by going inside. So close your eyes first. Close your eyes and let's get into this flow state. Let's get into the flow state. And how you do that is by focusing on your breathing, the exhalations first, letting those exhalations remind you how to relax and let go. Notice this is a reality that you really can trust in that breath. Notice what it feels like to be aware that you can indeed trust in your breath. This is a reality that you have to discover for yourself. Nobody else can do this for you. The sense of being taken care of. Find what you can to appreciate about this experience. Allow yourself to feel gratitude for this experience. So we shift to the flow state, and from the flow state, we begin to be aware of this flow state and appreciate it, feel gratitude, and that moves us into heart awareness. It warms, it expands. Everything that you need is being provided for you right now. And so you're coming from a place of abundance and love and sharing. And just take this energy and reach out and make a heart connection with your partner. And just making this heart connection, being aware of each other heart to heart, just simply appreciating each other from the inside. And just see what that's like. Okay, now I want you to take a deep breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Open your eyes. Now, let me just ask you this. How many of you does it feel real to be aware through your heart? Okay, well, so many hands are up. Does it feel real to you to experience a heart connection with another person? It does? A few hands are up. More hands are up. Okay, we rush through things so much. And I'm on a very tight schedule, so it really puts me on a rush. But you don't want to rush over this, because here's something we take for granted but has profound implications. That we can experience a heart connection with somebody and it feels real. We're not using a stethoscope. We didn't take a knife out and cut open their chest. We're not touching them, but it feels real. Now, we can get some external validation for this by talking with the person about what we experienced. And in a moment, we're going to take a break, and why don't you go with your partner back to get a refreshment and just share with them what it was like to be in heart connection with that person for a minute and see what that's like. When we come back from the break, we're going to explore a little bit more about the external validation and how we can actually use this heart awareness for intelligence gathering, for guidance, purposes of guidance in helping one another. Okay? So let's stop now. We have a 20-minute break. Begin by sharing with your partner a little bit while you get a drink, and we'll come back here at 20 minutes till 4.